Okay, so we're going to start. We're in the end of chapter 5, and we're in the middle of this story with Naaman, who was the chief commander of the Aram nation, Aram army, and he had leprosy, and he was healed by none other than Elisha, the Jewish prophet, and he's really like in a state of a great excitement because he's finally back to his normal life. He could not really be himself with his leprosy. And we mentioned last week about how a person who's a leper is considered similar to death. It's really a terrible disease, and even the biblical leprosy and the fact that Elisha healed him brought a great Kiddush Hashem, sanctification of God's name. And Elisha refused to take money for healing Naaman. And we saw a few reasons because why he refused to take money. Number one, he said, the money that Naaman has is connected to idol worship, so we can't. It's not. You're not allowed to use it. You're not allowed to benefit from it. It's being that Naaman was an idol worshiper, so there was a good chance that his money was earned in a connected to idol worship, and therefore would not be allowed to benefit from. But then there was this other reason that Elisha did not want people to think that he does this healing people. He has some method that he heals people, and this is like his business. He's like a miracle doctor, and he has special powers that he's able to heal, and he takes money for his services. He wanted it to be clear this is from Hashem. I'll do what I can, but it's basically Hashem healing. I'll put in the request, but it's all from Hashem. It's not me. I don't have these powers. It's Hashem making this happen. So he wanted it to be very clear that it's coming from Hashem, and therefore he refused to take money. Now, while doing this, Naaman leaves, and Gehazi, who's the attendant of Elisha, of the prophet, he decides, this is a good opportunity. Let me go and tell the Naaman. Naaman was offering big money. Let me go and tell him that we do not want the money. And the commentaries, and they bring different reasons why Gehazi thought he had a good point. And number one, why not let Naaman do a mitzvah and donate money? What's wrong with that? Additionally, let him do tzedakah. Additionally, there's a prohibition of giving a free gift to a non-Jew. So Elisha was really not allowed to do this for free. And then you could take it even a step further and say, well, the money that Naaman has was initially maybe idol worship money, but Naaman has now denounced idol worship. And if so, his money is now no longer prohibited because he no longer worships idols, and he has accepted to be the ger toshav, someone who agrees to keep the 7 Noahide laws. So Gehazi had all these rabbinic sources. He had, sources in Torah, logic based on Torah law, that what he's doing is should be acceptable. Now, the only thing is that Elisha didn't agree with him, obviously, because Elisha said no. So on a simple level, Gehazi was obviously wrong, even though he had all of these good reasons. Gehazi, had good Talmudic logic of why each of the issues with taking money did not apply. He says, of course I should take money. Let Naaman give tzedakah. Why not? This is a great opportunity. We'll get him to give tzedakah. The fact that he's a ger toshav, the money is not prohibited anymore because he's denounced idol worship, and a yid is not allowed to heal not allowed to heal a guy for free. You're not allowed to do a favor for a guy for free. There are laws about that, and he says, "Let me correct this wrong, so to speak, that Elisha did by not taking money, and really we should take the money." And therefore, he said, he made a shavua, a promise that he's going to chase Naaman and take something from him. Now, on this, we had a little discussion last week, and David brought up a medrash that was brought in the Me'am Layes, where it talks about the two words. There's a word here where he says, "I will take something from Naaman. Let me get something from him." And the word was me'uma, at least something. Let me get something from him. So he's trying to make some money on this situation, and Hashem, so to speak, answers him back. You want to take muma from him? You will take a mum from him. And Rashi understood it here that maybe there's a kri and a ksiv, like there's maybe a way it's written and a way it's spelled out. But the commentaries don't seem to agree with Rashi, and everyone seems to spell it me'uma, just like it's pronounced. But what the Medrash seems to mean is not that there's one way of reading it, one way of spelling it, but rather that the words are very similar. That seems to be the meaning of the Medrash. And because the words are very similar, so Hashem was saying, "Oh, you want to take something from him? you will. Guess what you're going to take from him? Leprosy. You'll take the money also, but you want to take something from him. That's it. You'll get his leprosy." And this was not a small punishment. This was a very severe punishment. And unfortunately, it really was a extreme act that punishment that Elisha brought upon Gehazi, and it ended up with the Gemara even says that it was not appropriate. You're really supposed to push away someone only with your weaker arm, your left arm, and you pull them close with your right arm. And the Gemara says, not like Elisha did, that he pushed Gehazi away b'shtei yodayim, with both of his arms. In other words, you're always supposed to bring someone closer. It says, small doicha and yamin mekareves. The left arm pushes away and the right arm brings closer. And interestingly enough, the Lubavitcher Rebbe has a question on that Gemara where it says, small doicha, the left arm pushes away, and yamin mekareves, the right arm brings close. The Rebbe asks, shouldn't the right arm first show kindness? The right arm, meaning the stronger arm, which uses kindness. The left arm symbolizes strictness. So the right arm, which is stronger, is that you bring close, you do kindness, and the left arm is what the weaker arm is what you push away. So the Rebbe asks, you should first say bring close and then say push away. Why does it say small doicha yamin mekareves? The left arm pushes away, the right arm brings close. It should say the opposite order. The right arm brings close, and then the left arm pushes away. Right? Shouldn't you first do the kindness, and then you can do the, if you need to do some strictness, then you could use the strictness? So the Rebbe answers very beautifully. He says, we're dealing with a student of Elisha. What do you think Elisha did for the last 20 years, 50 years? He's been doing this, the right arm bringing close. You always start with the kindness. He's been doing that all along. Now in the middle of the story is where he's going to use the small doicha. He's going to push away. So the reason why it says small doicha, yamin makareves, is because it's not talking about at the beginning. It's talking about after you've developed a relationship, then you have to have the small doicha. In other words, the small doicha is after you're in the middle of the situation, after you've shown what you're supposed to, which is obviously the yamin makareves, the right arm, you bring close and you show kindness and bring the person close with your stronger arm. After you've done that so much and you see that he needs some type of rebuke, then you can rebuke him, but rebuke him with your weaker arm. But then after that, make sure to bring him closer again. You have to envelop him with the love, even in the beginning and at the end. In the middle, you have a little rebuke, and it's surrounded by love. So that's the Gemara's take on Elisha, that maybe it was wrong what he did. Now, the discussion we had last week, so I wanted to just touch on it. So David mentioned that Medrash, where it talks about this Mu'uma and Mum, that he got this, that he was punished. So it turns out that there's two promises here, according to the Medrash, that Gehazi made. Gehazi made a promise that he's going to get something from Naaman. And he also, when Naaman suspected that he was lying, Naaman said, promise me that Elisha sent you to retract what he already said. He already said he doesn't want to take any money. And you're telling me that he wants me to give you some money and some gifts. So if that's so, promise me, make a vow that it's, make a promise, swear to me that it's true that he sent you. So Gehazi then swears falsely. And the Medrash picks up on both of these things. Number one, he makes he swears that he's going to go and after Naaman and get something. And number two, he swears falsely to Naaman. And ultimately, it leads to a chilul Hashem, a desecration of Hashem's name. It leads to a desecration of Hashem's name because he does this. He goes and he takes something from Naaman, and Naaman was all impressed that he wasn't taking any money, that Elisha was not taking any money, and now he's going and taking money. So it ruined the beauty of this act that Elisha did to heal Naaman. And when he swears and he goes back, so the Medrash says, and he swore falsely. Ultimately, this is so the Medrash mentions both, really. There's the swearing and the false swearing, but both really led to this chilul Hashem, because had he not sworn falsely, then seemingly it would not have reflected back on Elisha. The fact that he swore falsely reflects back that, oh, it must be that Elisha did send him. So he basically took away the chilul Hashem. Now, what got him to take away the chilul Hashem was his swear. He swore that he's going to go and take away the kiddush Hashem that Elisha made, that he's going to go and get some money. And what the Hashem tells him is, you swore that you're going to remove the kiddush Hashem, and you're going to take away the kiddush Hashem So you're gonna end up with getting something from Naaman, which basically means his leprosy. And I'm just gonna pull up this medrash here because the wording of it, the way it's worded is interesting. It's let me just pull it up here. It's Bamidbar here. So the medrash says, okay, it's right here. It says that Elisha was Makadesh Hashem's name. He sanctified God's name because he didn't want to take any money. And Gehazi ran after him and he swore falsely. And the swearing falsely was when he swears to Naaman that he was sent from Elisha to take money, and that he sent him to take money. And it comes out that he was Machalel Hashem's name. He desecrated whatever Elisha sanctified, Gehazi desecrated. So Hashem said, "You wicked one, you swore, you said that you're going to run after him and take something from him. So and you swore in my name in order to desecrate my name. I swear that the little you said you're going to take, you're going to, that what you said you're going to take a little, you're going to end up taking his blemish." Mu'uma and mum. So that's the, so in the tsaras, the leprosy of Naaman attached him. So in other words, there's almost like Hashem made a little like play on the words. You know, what Elisha tried to sanctify, you desecrated. You swore that you're going to take something, mu'uma. So and you swore in order to desecrate my name. So I swear that when you said you're going to take mu'uma a little, you're going to take muma, you're going to take his blemish. And sure enough, he got the leprosy on him. So that's the medrash. Anyway, so it boils down to both.
Is that yes, a Gezer Shava?
Not exactly a Gezer Shava. It's just a similar word. You know, it's like a play on the word.
Also, it says you swore by my name, says Hashem, and then it says by your life I swear. So there was a swearing by one swearing by the other.
So the medrash doesn't. I don't know if the medrash actually uses that word.
In English,
let me just see. Does it say that word?
You swore by my name.
Russia it does. Yeah, it does actually. Chayecha. By your life, Mu'uma, you said, and you're going to take his mum. Yeah, it does use that term that Hashem says, I swear by your life that, I mean, that doesn't add anything to the insight. It's the same. I mean, the insight is the same. But yeah, it does say that. Hashem says, I swear by your life that you're going to take, you said you're going to take something, you're going to take his blemish. So anyway, it's a little play on the word, muma and mu'uma. In any event, going back to, so thank you, David, for bringing that medrash up. That's an interesting medrash here. But in any event, Hashem punished Gehazi, and basically from, I should say, Elisha punished Gehazi, that he ended up with this tsaras. And Gehazi's mistake, even though we gave a lot of good reasons, what Gehazi was planning on doing was he was using all of his Torah scholarliness in order for his selfish interests. So
That's enough.
in other words, he wanted money for things, as the verse will soon say, and basically, sometimes knowledge is not so good. Sometimes knowledge could take you. If you know too much, sometimes it's dangerous. Like people know how to make bombs. People know how to do, figure out how to pickpocket people, or people know how to, once it's different knowledge of different things, sometimes it could be used in a bad way, and therefore, just because Gehazi had these nice ideas and they seem to be logical and fit with Torah, but nevertheless, Torah needs to be um, Torah needs to be um, studied and given. You have to use Torah for the right purpose, and not just for your not for your personal benefit, which is what Gehazi was ultimately. He had all these reasons why he should take money, but what did he want the money for? Was it really because he was nervous that Elisha made a mistake? No, he was interested in having his personal benefit, and that's a very powerful and important idea to always remember, that sometimes the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, gives you a lot of reasons and logic why this is correct and this is good and this is, and really it's your evil inclination. Yes, David.
There's a mimer that I was learning from the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he says that sometimes a person makes himself smart in halacha in order to find himself leniencies.
Uh-huh.
So you're saying like a little bit of knowledge could be dangerous. Similarly, a person can learn some Torah in order to find leniencies and coolest for himself.
So I'm not, that's an interesting mimer that deserves to be understood, because in a certain sense, a Rav, his purpose of learning is to get down to the bottom of halacha, and to find any leniencies and any strict things, and to know it all in order to be able to use those leniencies when they're needed. So you know what I mean? So you have to know what that mimer specifically means. I could understand what the mimer means over there is, that it's referring to someone who's maybe looking to slack off and have some type of precast oil, and his goal is just to it could be like getting rid of his responsibilities of Torah. You know what I mean? But it needs to be qualified. In other words, you can't just that idea is not necessarily wrong in its own. There could be a pure purpose of doing that. Like a Rav does need to know leniencies, because there are scenarios where it's a mitzvah to be matir and makel, to be lenient, and in fact, generally the Rav who's lenient is generally the smarter Rav. Generally, when you have a Rav who's more lenient than another one, often it's because the Rav who's lenient knows the depth of the situation, and therefore he understands why you could differentiate between the cases and say this is different, and therefore there's room this is a reason to be lenient, and there's other opinions that are also lenient, and he knows other views and so on, and so kayach dehetera adif. The Gemara says that term, that it's the power of being lenient is actually better. It shows that you really know the depth of the topic. To be strict is easy, because if you're not 100% sure, so you could just be strict. But to be lenient means you have to be 100% sure. So anyway, so that's why I would when you learn that mimer sounds like an interesting mimer. Just you have to be careful, how far to what it's specifically referring to. Yes, Moshe.
Juxtaposed with Shlomo HaMelech, that his becoming overwhelmed with materialism may have been for a good purpose and not for a bad purpose, yet he was punished for having too much gashmiut. He was overwhelmed with the gashmiut, and yet he was punished for it. But it may have had a positive purpose to it in order
Right.
to impress the kahal, with Hashem. In other words, I think,
Yeah. No, Moshe, what you're
I
saying is a good point. That the fact that there could be positive reasons for certain actions that not necessarily do they look that they're correct, but they're done for the right purpose. And Shlomo HaMelech maybe had the right intentions initially, but he had a different issue, and that was that he was going against what the Torah said, but he understood that the reason why the Torah said something was for this reason, and he thought he was able to. It didn't apply to him, and that's where he went wrong, because even he was
but wasn't he
he wasn't above the law, um, even though he had great knowledge. But here, I think it's slightly different, where it's the fact that someone could use great knowledge to satisfy their interests. So here it's somewhat different. But in any event, yeah, they were both. The Shlomo HaMelech did make some mistakes. Now, Gehazi was a Russian. You wouldn't say that about Shlomo HaMelech. Now, but in any event, Gehazi did this terrible thing that caused a chilul Hashem. It caused a desecration of Hashem's name, and you could see the whole time, like one sin led to another, because first he wants the money, he wants some gifts, and then and he has all these good reasons, but what does he do? Naaman says, "Okay, swear to me." So what does he do? He swears falsely. And the Medrash even mentions that there, that he swears falsely. And if you look in verse 23, you have the word hoyel, which hoyel, at least according to Rashi and according to that Medrash, it means he swore that Naaman asked him, "Swear to me," and he swore to him that this is Elisha had sent him. So this is the story of Gehazi getting his doing his sins and ultimately getting punished. Now, it does say that Gehazi was assisted by his three sons, who helped him carry the treasure to his home, and ultimately we'll see that they are also punished. So they're involved in this sin as well. And so Gehazi does this false shavua, and Elisha then, and that's where we're really up to, is where Elisha knows about this. And what's interesting is it doesn't seem that he knew about Gehazi's evil character all along. Maybe initially he didn't see it, but when he did see it, the thing is, maybe he expected Gehazi's character to improve, and when it didn't, and so therefore he let him stay his attendant. In other words, what's surprising is, why did Elisha allow him to be his attendant? And on that, the understanding seems to be, based on the commentaries, that he expected him to improve, but ultimately that didn't happen. Now, the end is that he gets the tsaras. And what's the idea? That he gets the leprosy. So when people see that he gets the leprosy, they will realize that there's no cure. And the fact that Naaman was cured, it must have been straight from Hashem. So in other words, the leprosy is going to bring out that this is a miracle of Hashem. The fact that we cured, that the fact that Naaman was cured. The fact that you are not cured, and meaning there's no healing for leprosy, and yet Naaman was cured, it must be that Naaman was cured by a miracle, and therefore it'll ultimately fix the sin of desecrating Hashem's name, because now that now it'll sanctify Hashem's name, the fact that he gets leprosy. So just taking it a little deep, if you want to understand the depth of this, here you now have a little understanding of this, that it's bringing out the a sanctification of Hashem's name. And ultimately, what comes out from this is that Elisha wanted that Gehazi should at least get Olam Haba. He's going to lose his Olam Hazeh because he's going to be stuck with the leprosy, but at least he'll get Olam Haba because he ultimately was punished, and he sanctified, he fixed the mistake, the sin that he did, and that's what was meant. Now, we'll see that he doesn't exactly follow through. He ends up leading himself, and the Gemara brings that he ends up doing more sins afterwards. Now, why he deserved Saras, the truth is there are other things that he did wrong, which we touched upon, and that is that when Elisha gave him the stick to resurrect the child, the Shunamis's white woman's child, he spoke negative about it, and he said, "Do you think it's actually going to work?" So Gehazi had he had a element of not believing and mocking it almost. And so that was another sin of Gehazi's. And the fact that he swore falsely, that was another sin. And then he caused the Chilul Hashem, which is an additional element. In other words, in addition to swearing falsely, he also caused the Chilul Hashem, the desecration of Hashem's name. And the fact that he was an attendant to Elisha was why he still deserved, at least he'll benefit in the world to come. So because he was, so it was ultimately, he was just going to lose Olam Hazeh, this world, but because, and maybe he deserved to lose the world to come, but because he was someone who served Elisha, so therefore Hashem had compassion on him, so he was supposed to merit the world to come, and ultimately that didn't really work. And what did he end up doing? What sin did Gehazi end up doing? So it says that after this, he ended up placing a magnet on the calf that Yeravam placed for people to worship. And he made the calf float in midair. And another explanation is that he put Hashem's name between the calf's lips, and it actually spoke and said, "I am Hashem, your God." And so some Jews were like impressed with that, and they didn't know that there was a magnet, so they thought the calf had some supernatural powers, or they saw the calf speaking, "I am Hashem, your God," so they were, started believing this. And anyway, so he misled these Yidden, and ultimately lost his share in Olam Haba, and he ended up moving to Aram and living among the Goyim there, and so on. Now, again, the Gemara does speak negative about how strict Elisha was, and maybe he shouldn't have done that. And whenever you punish someone, you always have to yamin mekarebas. You always need the right hand you always use the weaker hand to punish, and the yamin, the right hand, to bring close. So that's basically the discussion, the stories about Gehazi, and what should have happened. Now,
Is that story with the magnet, is that coming up or that happened already?
it's in the Gemara. It's in the Gemara. The Gemara talks about it.
Which Gemara, do you know?
And Saita.
Okay, thank you.
So we're going to start. We're going to start on verse 23. Verse 23, it's chapter 5. Chapter 5, again, we're in Kings 2, chapter 5, verse 23. Naaman said, please take 2 talents, because Gehazi only asked for 1. So Naaman said, oh, well, Elisha wants, okay, take 2. And he prevailed upon him, and he wrapped up 2 talents of silver in 2 pouches. He took 2 changes of clothing, gave it to his 2 attendants, who carried it before Gehazi. And now, when he says he prevailed on him, so that's the word that some of the commentaries in the Medrash as well understand to mean he made him swear that it's true that Elisha really wanted this, and Elisha sent you to tell me to change his mind and retract. And Gehazi swore falsely, and he said, yes, Elisha sent me. And anyway, so but he sends with him the 2 attendants, and the 2 attendants, the commentaries understand this because he didn't believe him. Even after he swore, he sort of had this thought that maybe he swore falsely. And he said, let me send with you these 2 attendants to see that, bring it to your master, to Elisha the prophet. And but Gehazi had a big problem now, because they're coming with him, and if he goes to Elisha the prophet and he hands it to him, Elisha's going to scream at him and say, I never wanted this. Why are you bringing it? So when they came to a secluded place, and the Hebrew term is this interesting word, ha'oifel. They came to the oifel, which some commentaries say it means a tower. Other commentaries says it means darkness, the secluded area, like. So he took it from their hands and hid it in his house, and this is he then sent the men off, and they went. So basically, he doesn't want the attendants of Naaman to find out that this is all not true, and Elisha never sent him to take it. Elisha never asked him to take it. This was all a lie. But so he doesn't go back to Elisha. He goes to this secluded area or to some tower, and he drops it off there. He says, okay, you people can go back. Thank you so much. We don't need you, and goodbye. And sure enough, somehow they had no choice, I guess, but to just follow his orders, even though Naaman seemingly sent them to bring it directly to Elisha. But they sort of, maybe they didn't understand the command, or they didn't have the ability to force Gehazi. Maybe they didn't know how important it was to Naaman. So anyway, they left. So verse 25, he then came and stood before his master. Now Gehazi is coming back to Elisha. He's got his stuff, and then he comes to Elisha, said to him, where are you coming from, Gehazi? So he said, your servant did not go here or there. I'm not coming from anywhere. I've been around. So verse 26, Elisha then said to him, did my heart not go along when a man turned aside from upon his chariot to greet you? In other words, Naaman had jumped down from his chariot to say hello to Gehazi when Gehazi came running to him. Naaman, in fact, this was one of the points, I think we mentioned it last week, that Naaman jumped down from he became humbled from, the reason Naaman got leprosy in the first place was because of his arrogance. And then after he was healed, he became humbled. And he even went down from his chariot to see if Gehazi needs something, because Gehazi was running after him. So he came down, and he says, didn't the man turn aside from upon his chariot to greet you? Is this a proper time to accept money? With which, and this is what I was quoting before, with which to buy clothing, olive trees, vineyards, sheep, cattle, slaves, and maidservants? In other words, what was going on in Gehazi's mind. He was having in mind, oh, I'm going to buy all this stuff, clothing, olive trees, vineyards, sheep, cattle, slaves, maids. He's planning on, he was thinking about all this stuff when he was taking the money and the gifts from Gehazi. Is this a proper time to take that? 27, Naaman's leprosy shall therefore cleave to you and to your children forever. When Gehazi left his presence, he was white as snow with leprosy. And the commentaries talk, the mention about the Gemara talks about the color of leprosy, and there's white as snow, white as tzemer lavan, as white wool, and there's different colors to leprosy, and this is the most extreme color, and he got a very extreme leprosy, so to speak, and that's the and it says that it would cleave to you and to your children forever. Now that doesn't mean for generations, but what it does mean is that it does mean that he never got healed and his kids didn't get healed, but it doesn't mean that it went on for more generations. Other commentaries mention about the fact that Gehazi lied when he was asked, where are you coming from? Instead of him telling the truth, he tried to hide the sin. And so this made this sin that he took money even more severe than some of the other sins that Gehazi had done, which one of them we're going to see in chapter 6 had to do with the fact that he caused many students not to want to study in Elisha's yeshiva, and which we'll soon see right after this story. And that was one sin. And then the other sin, which I mentioned last week, also was the fact that he touched the woman, the Shunammite woman, in an inappropriate manner. And but here the sin was that he, in addition to his false shavua, his false oath, the fact that he caused the Chil Hashem and so on, and here also, as I mentioned, that the punishment is not only for him, but it's also his children. As I mentioned earlier, his children were accomplices to his sin. They helped carry this. They were with him, and they went along with it, and in this whole deceiving scam, you can call it that. Okay, now we're up to chapter 6. The prophet's disciples once said to Elisha, "Behold, the place where we are dwelling before you is too crowded for us. Let us go to the Jordan, and each one of us will take one beam, and there we will make ourselves a place to dwell." And the prophets, the prophet's disciples, meaning the Bnei Hanavim, these are the student prophets. They're trying to be prophets, or they're studying, and so on. So they're basically asking Elisha that they want to get a bigger base medrash, a bigger house of study, and it's crowded where we are. And so what's the connection between this and the previous chapter? And so the commentaries understand that once Gehazi was kicked out, guess what happened? They got a lot of new students. Now they realized, Gehazi was limiting the amount of students that were coming, either because he was like not interested in and he would push students away because they saw his they didn't like his personality, his character, and so they or he restricted the amount of students, so they started realizing, oh, all of a sudden, we're getting so many students. What was going on before? It must be that Gehazi was the one who was stopping these students from coming to learn Torah. And that's what I just mentioned a few minutes ago, that this was another sin of Gehazi's, that he was somehow, for whatever reason, causing students not to want to come and learn Torah. Now, all of a sudden, they have so many students. And there are sources that the amount of students were, he did have like I think it says 2,000, and now we had like 200,000. Sounded like crazy amount of students all of a sudden started flocking there after Gehazi was kicked out. And now they need, they're really cramped. They need a much bigger place, so they want to go and build a place by the Jordan, by the Yarden. And you have that amount of students, each one helps, you could make a building. And they said, so Elisha replied, go. And one of them said, please agree to go with your servants. And Elisha replied, I will go. So Elisha's coming with them, and they're going to build themselves a much bigger place, a bigger location. And the reason why they wanted to go to the Jordan, commentaries mention, one of the commentaries brings that it had to do with the fact that Eliyahu ascended to heaven over there, so they thought that they would get divine inspiration. And you have to understand that these are students of the prophet. This is not just a regular yeshiva. This is like a yeshivas hamakubalim. This is like a yeshiva of prophets, student prophets. They're hoping to get prophecy, so they're going to this. They're interested in prophecy. They want to go a place that's holy, like Eliyahu went to heaven. Must have great divine inspiration over there. There must be Ruach HaKodesh there, and Shechina, and therefore this would be a good place to go. And then they want Elisha to come with them, seemingly because maybe they want Elisha to protect them in case there's any dangers and so on. And so Elisha agrees, and he goes with them. I think I saw another commentary that mentioned that maybe they wanted to study while they were building. At least they shouldn't lose time from their studies. So that might have been a concern of theirs. So anyway, Elisha agrees to go. And here we're going to see another miracle that Elisha does in verse 4. So he went with them, and they arrived at the Jordan, cut down the trees. It happened as one of them was felling a beam, that the iron axe head fell into the water. He cried out and said, alas, my master, it is borrowed. So the student was very nervous because he had a borrowed axe, and the metal it fell into the water, and he felt, what am I going to do now? How am I going to pay for it? I don't have money. It's borrowed, and I don't have what to pay. Now, the interesting thing is, according to halacha, if you borrow something and you're using it for its purpose, you're generally not responsible. If you borrow something, you lose it. Yes. If it gets stolen, yeah, you're responsible. But borrowing something and just using it, mesa machmas malacha, it's called. If it dies while it's working, that's what it's for. You borrowed it for that work. Then you're not really responsible. But it seems that because he was a student of Elisha, he felt that he would have to pay. Even so, because of Kiddush Hashem, he borrowed it. He would need to, show his concern for the other person's property, even if he's not legally obligated to pay for it. And that's what it seems like here, that he felt that he should still pay for it, even if they couldn't hold him responsible financially in court. He still felt he's going to have to pay for it. And here, of course, he's very concerned because he doesn't have money to pay for it. I guess in those days, maybe metal was very expensive, and they didn't have Home Depots on every block. So I guess it was hard to make these type of things. So in any event, he's very nervous. And here Elisha is going to make a miracle for him. So the man of God asked him, where did it fall? And he showed him the place. Elisha then cut a piece of wood and threw it there, and the iron floated up. He said, pick it up for yourself. And he stretched out his hand and he took it. So a great miracle happened just in these two verses where the man of God, it doesn't say Elisha's name, but Elisha, what happened was, you have to understand that there's a metal piece and there's a wooden piece when it comes to this axe. The axe part is metal, and you stick a piece of wood in it, and it holds the axe. It's the handle for the axe, and it's tight somewhere in there. But sometimes it flies off, and this is what happened. So, or it falls off. So Elisha did not use the wood that came with this axe. Instead, he used a different piece of wood, and he threw it there. And it caused what happened was it stuck into the iron that had a hole for this wood, for this handle, and he was able to it miraculously like attached itself to the metal, and he was able to pull it up. And commentaries talk about, why didn't he just use the old piece of wood that was the original handle? And commentaries say that you see in other places that there seems to be a concept when you do a miracle that you don't use something that was already there. You like to use something new, so that it's revealed that it's not some type of trick that you have. It's like a new vessel that there's no hidden secrets inside that that you use. This is like a new vessel. It just came from the manufacturer. It just was built. It was just created. So in other words, this is a miracle from Hashem. And we find a similar thing that if you remember, the water was bitter, and I think it was Eliyahu or Elisha. What was in chapter the story before, where there was where Elisha and Eliyahu were traveling. Oh, and then Eliyahu went up to heaven, and Elisha came. Elisha was going retracting those where he went with Eliyahu, and he came to Yitzchok, and Yitzchok was the water, the bitter water, and he says, "Bring me a tzloiches chadasha, a new jar, and put salt in it." And they put salt in it, and they brought it to him, and he went and he threw it into the water. All of a sudden, the water became sweet. You think the salt. This is the worst thing for the water. He specifically did that to show them that it's Hashem who decides. And so said Hashem, I healed the water, and no one else will die. The water was not only bitter, it was causing people to die there, right? If you remember the Oretz Mishakelas, causing people to die. It was remember that story there where they were saying, this is a good land, but people are dying. We were wondering, like, what's the meaning of that? Why were people so happy with this land if people were dying from it, and people dying from that water? And ultimately, Elisha healed the water, and he says, no more, there won't be any more death. And anyway, so that was Elisha. That was one of the miracles in the beginning over here where Elisha had done. And so also he uses a new, I'm just bringing that because the commentaries connect it to this. The Radak over here brings this idea that you need to have something new when you do a miracle, or at least at times they used new something new in order to do a miracle, because it showed that it was from Hashem and it wasn't some trick that they were doing. So
Rabbi,
yes,
with Ovadia and the miracle with the oil, they were all used pots and pans.
I was thinking about that. It's an interesting question. My understanding was that maybe there's a difference between when the prophet himself does it, and when someone else is doing it. When the prophet himself is doing it, it can be done in a more revealed way. And both of these cases are cases where the prophet himself did it. And the case with the oil was it was done almost like it was like done in a hidden way, because it wasn't the prophet there. They were doing this miracle, themselves. He wasn't the prophet wasn't there. So because of that, maybe that's the difference. I was thinking about that. I mean, it's definitely an interesting question. I'm not familiar with laws of miracles, making miracles. It's a little above my pay grade, but that's a thought that comes to my mind, that maybe you could explain that way, that's the difference. So, oh, interesting. This actually is a haftarah. The story of Naaman, I should mention, is actually the haftarah of Parshas Tazria. So it's actually good to know this story. And okay, so now coming back to where we are here in chapter 6. So Elisha performs this miracle, and this student is able to get this iron. It floats up to him. Now, the next part is another. The next this story here is another great miracle. Verse 8. The king of Aram was.
There's a little note here. It says this was Elisha's 12th miracle.
Okay, you're going by want to count the numbers. We know Elisha did double. Yeah. Okay, yeah, very good. So this is the following one is the 8th, is the 12th. Verse 8 is which one is the 12th?
The verse 7. That was the 12th.
That was the 12th. So verse 8 is the 13th. Okay. So the king of Aram was fighting against Israel. He took counsel with his servants, saying, "My encampments will be in a certain secret place." And so he's the king of Aram is now is fighting against the Yidden, and Elisha is gonna warn the king to be ready for an ambush. Don't walk in this area. They're ambushing you. Don't walk in that area. So the king of Aram is fighting against Israel. He took counsel with his servants, saying, "My encampments will be in a certain secret place." And he only told his servants. And the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, saying, "Beware of passing by this place." So the prophet Elisha tells Yehoram, he says, be aware, don't pass, for that is where Aram is lurking. The king of Israel sent scouts to the place about which the man of God had spoken to him and had warned him, and he took care to avoid this place. Excuse me. And this happened not just once, not just twice, like it happened numerous times. All of a sudden, like the king is never going into this area. Like they're putting up all these different secretive ambushes for the king, and he's not falling into the trap. There must be some traitor. So who's spilling the beans? Who's telling people? So the heart of the king of Aram became perturbed over the matter. He summoned his servants and said to them, "Won't you tell me of which of our people is reporting to the king of Israel?" And one of his servants said, "It is not so, my master, the king. Rather, Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king even the things that you discuss in your bedroom." That means the prophet knows everything going on, and you think you're making you're ambushing the king. You think you're able to have your secrets, but Elisha knows everything. So he's revealing. He even knows what's going on in your own bedroom. And so he has it through divine knowledge, through prophecy. I'm going to stop here, but that's another miracle. And I guess this would be number 13, that Elisha saves the king numerous times from being caught by the Aram tricks and by the Aram ambushes. Okay, we're going to stop here. Sei gesund, everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Sure.